Yes, please. All right. So sorry for the technical difficulties here in the small screen. Needless to say, we're ready to go. I wanted to thank everybody for being here today. I'm really excited to have Sir Roger Price here to speak to us today. Roger has a tremendous amount of over 50 years of experience working with a wide variety of conditions, patient populations. He started his career in the pharmaceutical world in Australia. He spent a lot of time in South Africa and really all around the world, teaching, learning, and really has been tremendously influential in a lot of the work that I've been doing recently. And I'm really excited to have him here and hear him shed some of his wisdom. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you so much indeed. So, here we go. If I stand here, I can actually see what's going on. I'm a functional medicine educator. Modern medicine and dentistry that you all study at university is dysfunctional. It teaches us all about what's wrong and how to fix it. So it's talking about the human body as being a dysfunctional organism rather than a functional organism. And I think it's well reported that when Michelangelo unveiled the statue of David, a woman said to him, "How did you know to create David out of this block of marble?" And he said, "I didn't. David was in the marble. All I had to do was chip away what wasn't David." So with human beings, health is innate. Health is intrinsic to who we are when we're conceived and when we're born. And this, of course, is barring the trauma and the genetics that we fall a very small percentage of people. But our role is not to create health. Our role is to show people how they can chip away at what isn't health and what is getting in the way of their being healthy. And I've been doing this for a long time. I'm now 77 years old. I run around the world like a demented jackrabbit. I'm probably a retarded adolescent to put things properly into perspective. And I've been doing this since I don't know what that slide has come up for. Oh, I forgot to remove, okay. I copied it and I forgot to remove the original one. Look, so we can get rid of that. So what's it all about? Since time immemorial, life has always been about balance. Everything is about balance. Look at all the genius people of the past. Look at the Da Vinci's, look at the Michelangelos, look at the Newtons. Everything is about balance. And for every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. Okay? There's no denying that. There's no arguing with it. It's just one of these facts of life. And the dentist who doesn't look at feet is about as crazy as the podiatrist who doesn't look at teeth. Because I was trained by probably the best anatomist on the planet. He was an African-American born in 1935. His name was James Earl Gardner. Have any of you ever heard of him as an anatomist? He was also a minister and he was a songwriter. And he wrote the song, "The foot bone's connected to the ankle bone's connected to the okay? And that is really all you need to know about anatomy. Everything is connected. And that, of course, is where modern medicine kind of gets us out of sync. It doesn't believe things are connected. We become specialists in specific parts of the body. Okay, I had many years of playing rugby, many years of contact sport. I've had 3 shoulder reconstructions. Okay. You all physios, you all know about it. You all know about those rotator cuffs and those supraspinatus type things that we have to fix. So when I had the 3rd one done, I went back to my orthopedic surgeon and I said, "I just want to know, am I in the right place? Do you do left shoulders or only right shoulders?" Because that's where specialization has gone. it's gone completely crazy, it's gone haywire. So the whole world is focused on efficiency. Everything we have, we want to be as efficient as possible. Our computers, our cell phones, our heating and cooling, everything is all about efficiency. What about efficiency in the most important, incredible machine of all? What about efficiency in the human body? Who looks to see that we are functioning as efficiently as we can? So we want to dispel a few common myths that are absolute nonsense, okay? We're all being brought up on this, our kids are still being brought up on this. Breathing is all about oxygen, right? And everybody says, yeah, right. Well, that's not true. Breathing is not all about oxygen. The air around us has 4 times more oxygen than we could ever need. We have 21% of oxygen available. The human body needs 5%. And I see eyes glazed, and I see legs crossed, and I see mind saying, what's this all about? How do we do mouth to mouth? Exhale poisonous toxic waste gas into somebody. We have 16% of oxygen in the exhaled breath. So does that mean that we are ever short of oxygen? As long as we are breathing, we have 4 times as much as we need. I've got to count occasionally to see where we are. The next myth, of course, is that CO2 is this toxic waste gas. And we have to stand in front of the window and we have to exhale it. We have to empty our lungs of this toxic waste gas. That is absolute nonsense. And that is the root cause of many, many, many people's problems, is that they're breathing inefficiently. They're putting their focus on oxygen, they're taking their focus off CO2, and they are messing up the balance. The next thing, of course, is we're all taught in through the nose, out through the mouth. Who was taught that? I'm not saying what you believe now. But we were taught by sports coaches, we were taught in through the nose, out through the mouth. That is total nonsense. Who are the world's top marathoners? Who knows? Don't be shy. I don't want names, I want a nation.
Kenyans.
The Kenyans. Do you ever see them run with their mouths open? On 42 kilometers, their mouths will be open for the last 200 meters when they sprint. 41.8 kilometers, mouths are closed, breathing in and out through the nose. Ever watched a horse race? Does a horse race? No, the nostrils are doing this, aren't they? Do any of you have pets? Cats, dogs? Do they sleep with their mouths open? No. There are 5,432 mammals on this planet, including us. We are the only mammal that sleeps with its mouth open. It is abnormal. It is totally abnormal. There is nothing wrong with mouth breathing. Well, none of you will look like that. And of course, no pain, no gain. There are 2 words missing. Who can tell me what those 2 words are? No brain. Pain is there to say, don't do that again, you numbnut, you are damaging yourself. But oh no, 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 no pain, no gain. So we're about to drive up to the Catskills, okay? We just go to the bottom of the mountains and the red light flashes on the dash of the car. And we say, forget it, no pain, no gain, and we shoot up the mountain, right? No. We stop and we call AAA, and we say, red light flashing. And we can buy a new car the next day. All right, so this is kind of getting to some of these things. So what is the human body? It's an incredibly complex and sophisticated combination of chemistry, mechanics, physics, biology, biochemistry. And provided you look after it, it performs these complex functions so beautifully. I mean, I'm okay. I'm in reasonably good health, considering what I've been through. What else have you got that's lasted 77 years and still works better than the day it was born? I don't have many things. I mean, I don't need any more. One of me is more than enough, I can assure you. So these are some fun facts. I have to get a bit closer to them to be able to read them, because the eyes are not what they used to be before. I won't give them all to you, but I'll give you some of them, which are quite fun. We blink 10 million times a year. The body has between 50 and 100 trillion cells. You know we have 206 bones, and more than half are in the hands and feet. Now we have some fun stuff. We fall in love twice. We eat 7,300 eggs, and we have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. We produce 40,000 litres of urine and 8,500 kilograms of waste. And we spend 12 years watching TV. There's a whole lot of other silly stuff. But just think about what the body does, and think about how we take it for granted. Who in this room paid for their bodies when you were born? Did you write a check? Who got an operated manual? Who was instructed by somebody who was instructed by somebody who was instructed who was somebody who was instructed by somebody who knew nothing? All of us. Who instructed our children and we knew very little? All of us. I brought up 6 of them. How they survived me, I have no idea. I'm only 19, I just look like this. That's what 6 kids do to you. But they have survived in spite of what we've done, which is testament to what the human body can do. So here's an interesting fact. In our lifetimes, we will only ever catch 4 things. Those are the only categories of communicable disease that exist. Everything else is a result of what we're doing. You do not go to a football game and catch cancer. You don't go to a baseball game and catch hypertension. You don't go to an ice hockey game and catch a sore neck. Players do, but we don't when you're watching. So remember Newton's third law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The pains and the symptoms and the conditions that we have are consequential to what we are doing. And to try and get that message across is not easy. If we're in balance, the actions and reactions are normal and balanced and we feel good, this is how we were designed to function. The body should work well if we treat it well. But in the Western world, we do not treat ourselves well, unfortunately. And why? Stress. How many kinds of stress are there? Lots. We can, however, break them down into 3 categories. And if we look at those 3 categories of stress, they start to make sense. There is functional stress. How do you sit? How do you stand? How do you sleep? How do you talk? How many people talk really, really fast? I've been living in this country now for nearly 4 years. I took a flight back from Seattle a couple of days ago. I could not understand one word the flight attendant said. And I thought, for heaven's sake, take a breath. And if people talk that fast, how on earth can you balance your gases? How can you balance your diaphragm? How can you balance your function if you're running off at 1,000,000 miles an hour? The second group are the ingestional stressors. And I don't think we spend enough time thinking about those. We talk about nutrition. When we talk about nutrition, we talk about what we get. How many people talk about what we don't get? How about the things that we expect to get in our food, and they're no longer there because of the way the food is produced, the way the food is stored, and the way the food is prepared? What is the largest organ in the human body? The skin. Do we absorb things through the skin? Yeah, we do. There was a great cartoon I saw. It was a fairly ample female standing there, and she said, "I now know why I'm overweight," and she holds up her bottle of hair conditioner which says, "Adds body." Okay, that was her excuse. But there have been some interesting studies done relative to breast cancer and shampoo and conditioners. Because where do you normally wash your hair and condition? In the shower. Wearing clothes? Probably not. Is the water warm? Probably. Are your pores open? Probably. Have you read what is on labels on conditioner and shampoo? That stuff could kill a brown dog. And the rule is, if you can't pronounce it, don't use it. And you can't pronounce most of those things. So the conditioner says, leave on for 7 minutes, then rinse off. And you're standing there, stark, staring, butt naked, with your pores all open and there's hot water streaming over you with these chemicals streaming over. Have you ever considered that? I rest my case. Okay, what do we eat? What do we drink? What do we sniff? What do we inhale? What do we plaster on our children before they go into the sun? Have you ever read what is in these sunscreens? This stuff is toxic. It's petrochemicals. It's things that we would never, ever, ever, ever dream of feeding our children. And yet we slip, slop, slap so that they don't get cancer. There's a lot of information out that a lot of these things are carcinogenic. So we're really quite smart in some ways. And in other ways, we're like the kid who shot both parents and then judge, take it easy, I'm an orphan. Well, don't shoot your parents, you won't be in front of a judge and you don't have to cry that you were an orphan. Well, if these things here are what we're doing, and those things there are what we're eating, what do you reckon the third category of stressors are, is, and what's eating us? Which is the emotional stressors. So who drove here this evening? Traffic stressful? Huh?
What's for you?
What's traffic? It's motor cars, and trucks and roads, and lines on the road and some dumb drivers. Traffic is not stressful, traffic is traffic. It is the response to what went on that differentiates you sitting listening to music compared to the guy next to you thumping the steering wheel and swearing and hitting his head against the roof. So our emotional responses are responses to the stressors. They are not the stressors. And I think you'll find this quite an interesting way of looking at things. Look at your life. Is your life in balance? Do you have a balance between all those different color blocks? If your life is going well, you're doing it. If your life isn't going well, it's everybody else's fault, right? No. If your life isn't going well, you're doing it. You can't use one language for positivities and hive off the negativities to somebody else. And here's an awful thought, scary thought. We all have what we want. Because if we didn't want it, we'd have something else, and that's what we want. And people look at me quizzically and say, I don't want all this debt and these problems and these in-laws. Well, why do you have them? Who sold them to you? Who made you get them? It's what you want. You have what you want. Maybe you're not happy with it, but the reality is we all have what we want. And that is scary stuff, to put it bluntly. So what do we have? We can choose where we direct our energies and decisions. We're also able to choose the way we respond. And life is not a box of chocolates. words. Life is a handful of Scrabble tiles. We have an A, we have a C, we have two E's, an R, and a T. Anybody here play Scrabble? Of course you do. You know how you can make a whole lot of words with those letters. They're not particularly high scores. The C is a 3, everything else is a 1. So what can you do with those? You can arrange them to make a number of words. Can you do that? How many people do? Almost everybody. We're living in a reactionist world. Do you realize that you could just change a couple of these things around? And what do you get? You get where you are in control instead of believing that you are being controlled. It just means you shift a couple of letters around before you make a decision to do anything. Did our great-grandparents and grandparents always say to us, before you say or do anything, count up to 10? Didn't we learn that? Ancient wisdom. How many people count up to 10 before they shoot their mouths off? They don't, but you can. You can actually change the way you are, because you are who you are and what you are because of your choices. If you want to change something, you can change it. It is simple. It doesn't mean it's easy. There's a very big difference between simple. Simple is not complicated. Easy is hard. So what do we have? We have an integrated complex of 11 independent yet interdependent systems. That is the human body. And if one is out of whack, they're all out of whack. And we have this cascade effect. And this is something that really perplexes a lot of people, but the reality is, if we have a compromise, irrespective of the etiology of that compromise, what is the first thing the organism will do if it is compromised? It will compensate. And what is a compensation? It's usually a short-term parafunction to address the issue. So tomorrow morning, there's a 5-mile walk, and there are 500 people lined up in the street, and you're in the front. And on the 5th step, you get a little piece of gravel into your trainers. And you can't stop, because 499 people will run you down. So what do? You pronate, you supinate, you lift your heel, you tilt, you lift your pelvis, you move your head, and for 5 miles, you do this. You create a parafunction to help you through that problem. What happens if it's a 5,000 mile? What do you think will happen if you repeat that parafunction? You turn it into a dysfunction. And at the end of 5,000 miles, the body will say, I get it. This is the way we function in life, because you've told it enough times. Repeat that dysfunction enough times, and what does it become? Your new normal. And continue to repeat your new normal perpetuates the original compromise. That is what we call the vicious circle. It started with a compromise. Well, let's look at the various things that we compromise. Breathing. We breathe more times a day than any other function in the human body, apart from heartbeats. Because our hearts are beating 68, 72 beats per minute. I don't know anybody who breathes 72 breaths per minute over an extended period of time. They're kind of not with us any longer. So on average, people breathe between 25 and 30,000 breaths a day. Did you think of that for a moment? Could you imagine doing anything repetitively, knowingly and consciously 30,000 times a day? Could you bang your finger on the table 30,000 times a day? And yet that's how many times a day we breathe. if 2 or 3 of those breaths are out of balance, any problem? You don't even notice it. What happens if all 30,000 are out of balance? You've got a problem. And most people are not breathing efficient. Nobody's ever told them what or how or why. They just say, well, I know how to breathe because I'm alive. Barely. The world is in the grip of a terrible epidemic. And that epidemic is called average health. And the Western world suffers average health as though it was the norm. So what has happened to us is things that are completely abnormal and unnatural have become so commonplace that everybody believes they are normal and unavoidable. Crooked teeth. Yeah, all kids get crooked teeth. That's why we have orthodontists. Rotten tonsils and adenoids. Yeah, kids all get rotten tonsils. Go to the ENT, have them taken out. High blood pressure. We all have high blood pressure. Take pills. Cholesterol. No, high cholesterol is normal. Just take some statins. It's not true. These things are totally abnormal. And yet we have been conned into believing that they are quite normal. That's a lot of nonsense. Talking, we've spoken about, if you talk too fast, not only is it difficult for somebody to hear you, but they don't get what you've said. By the time this woman had spoken about the seatbelt, she was on the oxygen. And everything else in between nobody even heard. So what would have happened if we needed the seat cushion that has things in to become a flotation device? And this is flying overland from Denver to Seattle, okay, in case we have to bail out over the ocean. I know. Strange stuff happening here. What about sleeping? How many people sleep function? Not a whole heap, I can tell you. And according to a paper that was published 26th of August last year in the American Thoracic Society Journal, it was authored by Atul Malhotra, who was the then president, David Ozal, who is currently the president, and Barbara Phillips, who is the head of Chest magazine. The 3 of them stated in this paper that there are approximately 50 million Americans with a suspected sleep disorder and a total of 2,000 sleep specialists. What a great profession. 250,000 patients per doctor. What a gift. Trouble is, they're all over the place. So the normal way to sleep is on your side, with your mouth closed, breathing through your nose. How many of you sleep on your side? How many of you sleep on your back? How many of you sleep prone? You'll be surprised the number of people who've adopted dysfunctional sleep patterns just so that they can breathe. Okay. Sitting is the new smoking. Smoking is literally off the face of the earth as far as a problem is concerned for the general population. Sitting is a very, very harmful activity. When I lecture, I sometimes do 3 days, about 8 hours a day. Every 35 minutes, this is what's going to happen. What have you got up? You're all going to pick apples. How do you pick apples? You stretch out like this, you throw that hip out, and you stretch as far as you can with the hip in the opposite direction, and you grab an apple. Okay? Then you put it in the basket. Then pick one off this tree. Get it. So, 500 apples each, people. No. So I get them up and moving all the time.
I don't want you to fall over this.
I don't want you to string me up with it. So this is the kind of thing that most people don't do. You go to these conferences, how long do you sit for 2 hours while some nitwit drones on and on and on in this monotone with the Microsoft PowerPoint slides with the blue flash that you've seen your whole life. I mean, those things can drive you nuts. So poor seated posture is not good for us. It compromises our circulation, it compromises our breathing, it compromises all kinds of things. How many people stand correctly? Do any of you use the posture screen app? Have you seen it? Hey, that is just the best app I have ever come across in my life. It is a complete body analysis done on an iPad. Genius stuff, genius. We've swapped all our stuff now for posture screen. And they're the cleverest people. They're the only ones I've come across who've learned how to monetize an app. You pay for every template for every patient. 10 cents. Nobody objects to doing that. But if you do 100,000 of those a day across the country, it starts becoming quite important. So how many people do stand correctly with the EAM, over the acromion, over the trochanter, over the knee, over the ankle, and they stand correctly? How many people stand where you can see their knuckles, the simian stance? You should only be able to see the thumbs if those shoulders are back and the posture is good and people are breathing functionally from the diaphragm. Unlikely to be the case in the one on the left. Walking. How many people walk around? Have you ever walked down a road and watched the people in front of you? This morning I walked into the bank close to where I live. The woman in front of me was walking next to her shoes. They had literally crept up when she was walking on the sides of the shoes. I don't know why nobody ever told her that she's walking next to her shoes. I have no idea, but that's just the way it was. And feet out of alignment will go up. We will have these ascending problems that will culminate in issues in the cranium. And we will consequentially have descending issues coming from a malocclusion or from a forward head posture or from any kind of compensation that will go down and affect the feet. The foot bone is connected to the ankle bone. I'm sorry to give you the bad news, but that is the reality of life. Physical shape. Not a lot of people in this country are in even reasonable physical shape. And that, I mean, that is a lecture in its own right, and emotional shape is another lecture in its own right. What are the things that we are doing that are messing with our heads? You know, Brad and I co-consult on a couple of patients, and we talk about the things that physically do not appear to be an issue, but they become an issue because of the emotional component. So one has to really look at the mind-body complex to see what is actually going on. Basically, it's stress. So what does the ANS consist of? It has two branches. It has a sympathetic and it has a parasympathetic. And the sympathetic is fight, flight, drive, activity, get the job done. And the parasympathetic is rest, recovery. Got it? Where should we be? More of the time. Sympathetic or parasympathetic?
Parasympathetic.
Parasympathetic. I mean, you don't have to be a Harvard grad to work that one out. Okay. From a respiratory point of view, what drives sympathetic? The inhalation. And what encourages parasympathetic? The exhalation. Anybody here ever sigh? How do you feel at the end of a sigh? Isn't that good? Oh, wow. What has the sigh done? It's extended your parasympathetic phase, giving you those extra few moments in rest and recovery where you can eventually and finally say, wow, I can take a break. Well, surely, if we are able to teach people how to reduce the inhalation and extend the exhalation phase of their breathing, do you think we might get them out of sympathetic drive into parasympathetic recovery? I think it's possible. Of course it's possible. So that's just a little, very simple way of explaining the ANS to people without having to go into too great a detail biochemically or medically. It's just a case of inhale less, exhale longer, and you will feel better. I have no idea what's coming next. Oh, decision. Why didn't I hear that? There are lots of simple and low-cost techniques that we can use to make great changes in people's lives. And I think, in the immortal words of Stephen King, it comes down to what? Get busy living, or get busy dying. There's no getting busy staying the same. There is no state of staying the same. If you're not living, you're dying. And I know it's pretty harsh. So how do we achieve change? Isn't that what we're looking for? How do we achieve change? We take the word challenge and we remove laziness, laxity, and ego, and we're left with change. Is it all that difficult? It's a bit like this gravel tile, isn't it? So are any of you aware of the statistic? Published 2009, republished 2014, 65 to 80% of the population use holistic naturopathic medicine as a primary form of health care. Very small percentage of the world uses Western medicine. And, quote, if everyone knew that they could prevent any disease with plant extracts, medicinal herbs, natural vitamins, minerals, and supplements, as well as having peace of mind, the pharmaceutical and medical industry would collapse overnight. I started as a pharmacist in 1955. Every single medication was compounded. Pestle and mortar, herbs, bark, roots, trees, extracts, tinctures. The wonderful thing about those medicines was, if you took them, you were better in a week. If you never took them, you were better in 7 days. They didn't do any harm. We had one warning label in the dispensary. One, that we had to lick the gum and stick on the bottle. Shake the bottle before use. I remember I was 15 at the time, started my apprenticeship. And I sent out a bottle of mixture for a child and I didn't shake the bottle on it. And I ran to my boss with big wide eyes and I said, I forgot to put shake the bottle on the label on the bottle. What should I do? He said, telephone the mother and tell her to shake the child. And I said, here, what? He said, put it on the next one. Okay. Today you go to a pharmacy. You get a prescription for sleeping pills. And it has a warning label which says, warning, this product could cause drowsiness. Come on. The inmates have taken over the asylum. What happened to primo non nocere? Firstly, do no harm. You read the label, you read the inserts of modern drugs. They'll kill you. And how's the advertising? Green grass and blue skies and fluffy clouds, while it tells you for 15 seconds all the benefits, then you've got 3.5 minutes of how the stuff is going to kill you. And people buy this. 2 countries in the world permit television advertising of ethical drugs. The United States and New Zealand. And New Zealand has 3 million people and 90 million sheep. And the slogan is New Zealand, where men are men and the sheep are nervous. Okay. So all of this stuff here is aggravated by medical speak. The omentally challenged mammal of the quadruped genus of Felis sylvestris catus assumed a curative proteolytic cuneiform position on a collateral side of square fibrosa moleculosa. Woven into a functionally useful product commonly found that blah, 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 and look at all the references. Double-blinded, randomized, controlled trials, Cochrane reviewed, metadata analyzed, placebo-controlled. What is this person trying to tell us? Okay. But to say to a patient, the fat cat's out on her mat, they'll say, what kind of doctor are you? So what do we do? We're eschewing obfuscation and we're espousing elucidation, and we create terms like idiopathic. You have an idiopathic condition. It's your fault. Idiopathic means, I don't have a clue. But who wants to say, I don't have a clue? Well, what about iatrogenic? You know, Fred, you have this iatrogenic condition. Oh, buddy, what did I do to cause it? It means I caused it through what I did for you. You've sent it towards me. Was that deliberate?
It's coming back.
Very inhospitable. Okay. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. So we have a problem. We have an alphabet soup of confusion. And doctors do not understand that some measurements are nothing more than indicators of change. They are not empirical values on which you can diagnose. These things were created, all this alphabet soup of OSAs and AHIs and BMIs and these things, look at them, the RDIs and the HSTs and the UARSs, most of them are pseudoscientific babble. That's all they are. But are they thrown around? Do you keep on getting people with these things? What are they? The reality is they're actually something that we call swags. And you know what a swag is? That's what it is. The BMI, a totally useless measure. What the heck does my height squared have to do when it's divided into my weight? I might as well add in my shoe size and my grandmother's age when she died. Because the BMI was originally called the Quetelet equation. And the Quetelet equation came out in 1796. There was a Belgian statistician, mathematician by the name of Adolf Quetelet. And he was looking at population groups. And he said, if you've got a population group like the islanders, the Pacific Islanders, who are like, oh yeah, okay? And if you take their mass and you divide it by their height squared, you get a number. And squaring it is just to make the number mathematically easier. Squaring has got nothing to do with heads or feet or teeth or tongues or toes. It's a mathematical function to make a number simpler. Then you've got the Scandinavians and the Dutch, who are tall and thin, and they don't weigh that much. So if you divide their mass by their height squared, you get another range of numbers. So these ranges of numbers will indicate whether population groups tend to be or. Got it? 1974, Ansel Keys, who was a well-known physiologist, changed the Quetelet into the BMI. He launched it at a meeting in New York. He stood up and he said, do not use the BMI as an individual marker. And what does the medical profession use? An individual marker. Oh, BMI 38 is obese, you've got to have CPAP. It's a load of twaddle, okay? Do you know the word twaddle?
No.
It's an English word. It's a bit like Cotswold. Do you know Codswallop?
No.
Rubbish.
Lily.
Nonsense. A few other words which are quite descriptive. So what is the problem? It's a syndrome. It's called CRS, which is another TLA, which is one of those three-letter acronyms. And what does CRS actually mean? And it has a definition. It is a syndrome that affects the large majority of medical and dental institutions and graduates who adhere to dogma and past knowledge and refuse to accept that the world is in fact round. You can actually today still join the Flat Earth Society. They're still open for membership and you can get a certificate that you are a flat earther. Okay. They steadfastly dismiss as irrelevant anything that does not accord with their own narrow world and thinking. See also ego. Well, my question is, how can you see the light if that's the way you are? And this is what we are facing literally every day of our lives. We're facing this entrenched dogma. I have a new friend. I love him to pieces. His name is Andrew Lee, and he is a pediatrician, a medical doctor, a medical physician pediatrician. He sent me today the list of orthodoxies that are accepted as God-given fact by pediatricians. I want to tell you, you'll have about as much hair as I have by the time you finish reading these. And don't laugh at me, when you and I were born, we were given the same amount of testosterone. If you want to waste yours growing hair, that's your problem. These orthodoxies are terrifying. All children between 12 and 14, up to 12 or 14, will have swollen tonsils. It's normal. No, it's not normal. So we have a lot of work to do with pediatricians because they just do not understand what is going on in the modern world. They're just taking the dogma that they learned. So what is the prime function of the brain, the mind, and the body? Only one prime function, and that is to take the next breath. Everything else is secondary. Do you remember where you come from? It doesn't matter if you don't take the next breath. Okay? People don't think how important that next breath is. And that is where we have these problems. So, what is the problem? The problem is actually hyperventilation. And what is the meaning of hyperventilation? Breathing too much. Hypertension is too much tension. Hyperventilation is too much ventilation. Hyper, too much. And the only cause of this hyperventilation is what? Come on, I gave it to you a little while ago.
Wrong breathing.
No.
Stress.
Yes. Because the minute you're stressed and you go to fight or flight, what's the first thing that changes? Your breathing pattern. Okay, you go pale because the blood rushes to the muscles of fight or flight, and your eyes go wide so you can see whether that non-existent saber-toothed tiger has 4 cousins waiting around the corner waiting to eat you up. You know, all of these things happen. So when we have a look at this question of sleep, with all the things around sleep, sleep is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The industry is not sleep. The industry is stress. How much is done about sleep? How many sleep labs? How many sleep studies? How many sleep interventions? How many sleep app machines? I had one patient who called it a sleep app. Where's my sleep app machine? Okay. And it's multi-billion dollars all about sleep. But as we discussed earlier on, It's got nothing to do with that. It's the three groups of stressors that if we fail to address, we are going to continue to have a problem. Do you know that hyperventilation is ignored? It's ignored at every A&E department. 65% of people presenting at A&E, hyperventilation is listed as a symptom. What's done about it? Nothing. Stick him in a bed, give him a drip, stabilize them. Next morning the hyperventilation is gone, send them back. 3 weeks later, 4 o'clock in the morning, lights and sirens, they get brought back again, hyperventilating. What do you think happens to the body when you hyperventilate? 40 seconds of hyperventilation is going to reduce the oxygen content of your brain by 40%. Do you believe me? You're going to have a chance. Okay, I want you to hyperventilate for 20 seconds. Okay? And I want puppy dog breathing from all of you. You ready? Start hyperventilating now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Feels great, doesn't it? 14. Stop it! We don't want to call 911 and have lights and sirens. How do you feel? Pretty ordinary, huh? What's happening? You've dumped your CO2 levels. You've shifted the pH of your blood. You've prevented the oxygen flow from the oxygen of blood. Do you remember the Bohr effect? That's what it is. And your brain was saying, I am hypoxic. What is going on? And if you carried on doing that, you would die. 1932, there was an American physiologist called Yandell Henderson, and he wanted to prove this. And he tethered a team of sled dogs to a treadmill, and he breathed them to death. Not nice? We wouldn't do that today. We'd use people. No. But it's not a nice thing to do. Now the next thing that happens, when your carbon dioxide levels drop, as they do when you hyperventilate, you get an almost instantaneous bronchoconstriction and vasoconstriction. It is the body's defense mechanism against shifting your pH too quickly, where it says, this person is dumping all their CO2, let me shut everything down to see if we can limit the loss. 90% of asthma is misdiagnosed. Because the symptoms of asthma and the symptoms of bronchoconstriction are almost identical. Who's ever been tested for asthma? Pretty healthy lot. Spirometry or peak flow. They force you to breathe every vestige of air out of your lungs, which means every vestige of CO2 disappears, which means the bronchioles go into a screaming, hissy fit, and they snap shut, and you can't breathe. So they slap a mask on your face and pump in some albuterol, which artificially inflates the bronchioles and says, blow again. And this time you could blow the Santa Maria across the ocean, okay? And they say, you see, you've got asthma. No, you don't treat, you cause it. You put me into bronchoconstriction through that test. What is the first fundamental law of scientific measurement? Your measuring methodology should not change the parameters of what you are trying to measure. Who's had a sleep study? That was a fun night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
On your back?
Yep.
On a narrow bed?
On that bed then.
Not bad. Your own bed, did you do a home study? No. Okay. Wires in places you didn't even know you had places. And they say, have a good night. And they come in the morning, 5 o'clock, and say, you didn't have a very good night, did you? So figure. It's nuts. It's crazy what is going on. But this is the gold standard. This is the norm. So what are the consequences of hypercapnia? Essentially, the blood that should be free to leave the hemoglobin is not free anymore. It becomes sticky. So instead of this lovely fizzy blood, you've got the sticky blood. And of course, that's the Bohr effect. And then your tubes, which should be nice and smiley and friendly and open, I'm having a great time, they get more like, yeah. And that is the vaso and the bronchoconstriction. Who in this room has to get up at night to go to the bathroom? You can put your hands up high, I don't mind. I'm all right. Yeah. All got bladder problems, right? No, you don't. You have a breathing problem. The bladder is a smooth muscle tube. Got it? Like so. It's got stress sensors built in the walls. If you are not sleeping functionally, if your end-tidal carbon dioxide drops during the night, and women do not snore, okay, women purr. Some purr bloody loudly, okay. But if you're snoring or purring, and your CO2 levels drop, what's going to happen to the bladder? It's going to go the same as your bronchioles. It's going to go into spasm, and at this point, if you're lucky, it'll wake you up. How many of those nighttime trips are a full bladder? No, pain in the butt. The butt's on the other side. Okay. We get a 97% clearance rate of bedwetting children by teaching them to sleep with their mouths closed and to breathe through their noses. And the nephrologists and the urologists and the proctologists and every other ologist who ever drew a breath says there's no connection. You tell that to the child who's been bedwetting for 13 years, and the next morning they'll wake up dry. They'll have some very nice things to say to that nephrologist. Right. This is a very interesting graph. This shows us, I'm not sure if the mouse is going to work. Oh, hallelujah, I can bring up the thing and I can actually show you what's going on. Okay. In the 1920s, 30s, minute volume, minute ventilation was between 5 and 6 liters of air. That's how much air that we breathe in and out if we're breathing functionally. Got it? During the war years, it dropped marginally because food was in short supply, people weighed less, and their breathing rate dropped. Ooh. Hallelujah, ride in on their horse, Colonel Sanders and Burger King and Squat and Gobble and all of these people. Breathing rate doubled. And now it is quite normal. If you look at your textbooks, it is now normal to breathe 12 liters of air per minute. That is regarded as normal ventilation. 18 to 20 breaths per minute is regarded as normal. That is double. And look what has happened. We've had a 6-fold increase in chronic disease over that same period of time. And look at the age groups. Look, in your 0 to 14 years, you've got a 4 times increase. 15 to 24, 5 times increase. 25 to 44, 5 times. 45 to 64, 5 times. Yay, the baby boomers! I missed it by 6 years. 7 times, 7-fold increase. We're living longer. We're dying longer. We can die for 10 years. Where 50 years ago we kind of died quickly. You know, we kind of got it over and done with. We didn't spend $60,000 a month on dialysis to keep us what they call alive. That's not alive, that's a living death. Very interesting stuff, huh? These statistics are really important, and that is what's caused chaos. And nowhere is the chaos worse than in the sleep disorder business. Because it's looking for the right answers in the wrong places. Give you an example. Graduated, 1961. We had a huge dance. The main hall of the university was bedecked. We had one of those swirling balls, those mirror balls. It was pitch dark in there. And my best friend lost a cufflink. And he said to me, "Oh, bugger, I've lost a cufflink." I said, "Well, let's look for it." And he started to walk away. I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to the lobby." I said, "Why?" He said, "The light's better there." That's what's going on here.
Oh my God.
People are looking for answers in the wrong places. Sleep is not the problem. Sleep is the outcome. Who's heard the term sleep disordered breathing? Been to lectures, you hear it. How many times? SPB, SPB, this is SPB, and this causes SPB, SPB. It's a lot of nonsense. It's BDS. It's breathing disordered sleep. Because if it's sleep disordered breathing, where are we going to look for the answer? In sleep. If it's breathing disordered sleep, you'll find the answer in breathing, which is largely a daytime dysfunction. We're up 2/3 more than we're down, okay? I reckon that's possibly where some of these problems could be. And I told you, we've got this 50 million people suspected of suffering from sleep disorders. And this is the thing that it came from, the future of sleep medicine in the US, 26th of August last year. This, my friends, is the problem. We have top-down, gold standard. Were we taught the golden rule by our parents? What's the golden rule?
Do unto others. Yes.
What's the golden rule today? He who has the gold makes the rule. That's what it is. It's a top-down system. And the top-down system says everybody has to go CPAP, 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 right? And if it fails, go to your dentist and get a thing for your mouth. And if that fails, you become part of the great unwash. You become symptomatic, eventually you become chronically sick, and eventually you die, because nobody's done anything for you. But man, oh man, have we made a lot of money on CPAP. And you know that you can go, if you're a dentist, you can go to a course over a weekend for which you pay $6,000, which will teach you how to screw with the system and get $14,000 for an oral appliance. And I'll make you a millionaire dentist in 3 months. Does it work? Who cares? Never mind the quality, feel the width. Okay, so the whole thing is upside down. How about we turn it around and we take a sensible standard? Why don't we eliminate the obvious? Hyperventilation, stress, mouth breathing, congestion, inflammation, excess weight, positional biochemical dysfunction. How difficult is it to identify those? You don't need to be a neurologist or a pulmonologist or a sleep specialist. What do we do then? If we address those and they don't help because there is a physical problem with that mandible that's sliding all over the place and blocking the airway, we then go into cranial and airway remodeling. It does not mean putting a thing in your mouth and thrusting that mandible forward. So before you can have breakfast in the morning, you've got to stick a piece of plastic in there and you've got to lever the mandible back so that you can bite. Good thing is you can't bite the kids when you're awake. Okay, once that doesn't work, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with the DODs, the dead or dying, the roadkill. And these are the people who have to have that double jaw surgery because nothing else can work. Or they have to go on CPAP, which is a really nice alternative to a tracheostomy. I know what I would choose. Does that system not make more sense? That's what we're doing. We're turning the place upside down. That is my crusade. And why do we have a crusade? What's the benefit of a crusade? Just because something is being done doesn't mean it's the correct way of doing it. John Maynard Keynes, the British economist, made an incredible statement. He said, it is better for the reputation to fail conventionally than it is to succeed unconventionally. Is that not a sad indictment of where we are? Okay, that's the way it's done. It doesn't work, but at least my butt is covered. All right, so we had the legendary Don Quixote and his Sancho Panza, who went and sallied forth into the world to tilt windmills of dogma.
Oh, no. Come on. I didn't give permission for that. All right.
That's what we're doing. It's too easy to go with the flow. Okay? The Italians have a wonderful way. They say you need palle quadrate, you need square balls to do this. Okay? That's what it means in Italian. We have to do something that is going to make a change. And that's exactly what we're doing here. We're tilting at windmills. And the windmills we're going to tilt at are obstructive sleep apnea. It's a grab bag of very loose terms. How many in this room have had flu? How many of you have had influenza? Maybe a very small percentage. Most flu is nothing worse than a runny nose or an itchy throat or a mild 24-hour virus. But it's so convenient to call it the flu, because you can take flu medicine, you can have a flu shot, you can do all these things. So OSA is a grab bag, very loose terms. Oh, don't get me on SDB again. There it is, it's a myth. Sleep does not disorder functional breathing. And if you're a good breather and you go to bed, as you fall asleep, the little gremlin will say, let's wake him up. Sleep disorders breathing. It's a myth, it doesn't work. Central sleep apnea, this is a beautiful one. It is completely misunderstood. It is far more rife than accepted because it's not measured correctly, because the instrumentation does not detect the central episodes. It only detects the gross central episodes, not the... And of course this one, UARS, is just beautiful. Upper airway resistance syndrome. Why should your upper airway become resistant? Could it have anything to do with the fact that you're breathing twice the amount of air than it was designed to handle, and it gets a bit inflamed and a bit congested? No, that's too simple. So you've got UARS, so what am I going to do? I'm going to put a mask on your face and I'm going to blow air in at 30 miles an hour. And I'm going to blast past the obstruction. You think I'm going to inflame it even further? Okay, I don't want to do that. Why don't I crank your mandible forward? 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters, 10 millimeters, 2 feet. I'm trying to open up that congested, inflamed area. How about I reduce the inflammation and the congestion first, and then maybe crank that mandible forward 2 millimeters? Does it make sense? You know the problem? It doesn't make dollars. It just makes sense. And that's where we're getting an enormous amount of resistance from those who eat. So what do we know? Not much. We know that the human body is very complex. We know that its prime objective is to take the next breath, and it will compensate and compromise in order to do this. You can never do this with PowerPoint. That's why I like it. And it will persist with the compromises even if they cause collateral damage. You don't function particularly well at that angle, but if that's the only angle at which you can breathe, so be it. So here's your cascade, and we're going to continue to have this complex, and we're going to continue addressing the symptoms until the cows come home. And look at the symptoms. How many people present with this stuff? Oh, they're all normal. Everybody has them. She'll grow out of it. Now take a pill. I'll give you a script for which you will develop side effects, for which I will have to give you another script. But it's your fault, it's iatrogenic. You did it. How many people present like that? A very high percentage of the Western world's population. So here's a question. Is there a connection between that tongue-tied baby that mouth-breathing child, that compromised young man, that even more compromised older man, and that near-death experience? Death couldn't come too soon. There is such an abundance of evidence to support this. And yet, because it hasn't been double-blinded, randomized, written up in the Lancet, with placebo-controlled trials and submitted to a Cochrane review with metadata analyses, it does not exist. Show me the evidence, then I'll listen to you. It doesn't matter who the evidence comes from. It could be a clinical trial with an N of 2, provided it's been published somewhere it's valid, which is a lot of absolute nonsense. Are they those ducks? They look like ducks, they sound like ducks, but they're not ducks. Because we cannot use the same types of parameters and protocols to do everything. It's just not the way the human body works. So this is the autonomic nervous system. It's a cortisol and adrenaline fueled system. And believe me, it has its place. When you're being menaced by that thing, you kind of want to get out, okay? But they're not life-threatening. That does not require a call to action because of the traffic. That's parasympathetic. That is the same traffic. That is sympathetic. Multiply that by the number of stressful situations we create. And it's not hard to see why the world is stressed. World's a pretty stressed place, isn't it? Everything is intention. So stress is the only factor that causes the breathing patterns to change. And I continue to repeat this. We had a sportscaster in Australia. His name was Rex Mossop. He used to call football games. And he was renowned for his malaprops. And during one exciting game he said, "Let me reiterate and repeat again and tell you again what I told you the first time." Okay? That's called a Mossopism. Well, I'm full of Mossopisms here. Because if we don't look at the functional, the ingestional, and the emotional components of what we're doing, we're not going to get the answer. Anybody heard of Robert Sapolsky? He's a behavioral neurobiologist at Stanford. 35 years he has been spending every summer in Kenya living with primates. It's quite a character. And he wrote this book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Buy it. It's the best physiology book you will ever laugh your way through. And do you know why zebras don't get ulcers? Because they escape the lion, and they do the shake thing to get rid of the stress, and they have some water, and they eat some grass, and they go to sleep. They do not spend the next 3 weeks telling every zebra they meet what a narrow escape they had. Not it. We create our own stressors. I have a patient. It's a bit like I have a dream. Sometimes I dream that I don't have this patient anymore. I have this patient who has the only mother-in-law from hell. There was only one, and she has this mother-in-law from hell. who comes to spend Christmas with them every year. So December 29, she already starts stressing about the following Christmas. And she spends her entire life stressing about how she's going to handle her mother-in-law next time she comes to visit. The mother-in-law is not the problem. It's her response to the mother-in-law next. The mother-in-law is not going to change at the age of 76, no matter how long her nether regions point towards the ground. She will be who she is, who she has always been. She will never change. This woman doesn't get it. We're making progress. She's put an X on her mother-in-law. She spoke to somebody from Haiti who says she knows how to get rid of the problem. So we've got some take-home messages here, haven't we? And the take-home messages are: the majority of sleep disorders do not have their origin in sleep. They have their origin in posture, in breathing, in function, and in stress. They are breathing disorders of daytime origin which become worse during the process of sleep. If we don't address them during the day, they will steadily deteriorate. What about the next one? What about obstructive sleep apnea? Generic bad term. It's relatively rare. I don't see one 86-inch neck in this room. I don't see one 450-pound ex-truck driver or AFL or NFL football player. These are the people who tend to have the problems. These are people who have uvulae the size of large bananas, and they have palatal tissue that could really obstruct a freeway. There are not a lot of these people around, and for them, CPAP is absolutely vital. I am not anti-CPAP, for heaven's sake. I'm just anti the inappropriate prescription of it for people who don't have a problem. UARS, let's just get rid of the inflammation and the congestion by getting the breathing back to balance, by getting the nasal diaphragmatic route of breathing rather than the oral upper chest, and so many of these problems will go away. And what about this? Central sleep apnea. It's not a neurological problem. The definition is, it is a failure. It is that 800-pound gorilla sitting in the corner. And it's a failure of the message to breathe from the brain to the diaphragm. The message does not get there. Why? Where does it go? McDonald's for lunch? It's a biochemical issue. It is largely not a neurological issue. It is the emperor's new clothes. That emperor is butt naked. And nobody wants to admit it. So you have to have a machine for $4,800, which is known as an adaptive servo-ventilation, ASV. You know what that means? It means you put it on and it adjusts itself to your breathing. And your breathing is screwed to start with. So the machine adjusts itself to dysfunctional breathing, for which you pay $4,800. So I'd like you to see this. This is fun. I don't have really good volume because we don't have any extra speakers.